Hi everybody, and welcome back into my kitchen. Today I'm going to make the cake that I'm going to serve Thanksgiving Day. And I had chosen a cake very similar to this. Very similar. And then I watched one of my favorite channels, which is Robin Bensley. And she fixed this cake. And it was so similar, but I liked hers better. So anyway, I chose this one to fix, and you've got to visit her site. She's very unique and funny and has some great recipes. So, alright, we're going to begin with this cake. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is make the filling for this cake, which goes in the middle and on the top. So this is 6 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm adding, if I can get it out, 1 cup of brown sugar. You know to always pack sugar whether it says to or not. Then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. If I can find my teaspoon. It won't fit in there, so I'm going to put 4 half teaspoons. That's the best idea, because if you start trying to shake it into a little small teaspoon, it is going to be a disaster. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. That makes 2 teaspoons. I'm going to mix these ingredients up. And then I'm going to add a cup of chopped walnuts. The cake I originally was going to make called for pecans. And, you know, we eat a lot of pecans here in the South. A lot. So I said, well, you know, hers has got walnuts and some things that you don't usually have here. A lot. Not like pecans or pecans, depending on what part of the South you're in. Alright, I got that mixed. And that's the best way to ensure that it gets mixed well. Do it before you add the nuts. Alright. Now I'm going to add a cup of chopped walnuts and get this incorporated. And then we're just going to set this aside while we start on the cake. In the meantime, I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And you can use a bundt pan with this, but I used a flat bottom pan. She used an angel food cake pan. I don't like those at the bottom fall out of. But anyway, that's personal preference if you want to, and you know, that's fine. Alright, we're going to set this aside now, and we're going to start on the cake. So, let me get my mixer over here and back off a little bit. There we go. Alright. So, get my spoons out of the way here. I'm going to add a stick of softened butter. And don't skimp on this. Don't use margarine. You're making a great tasting cake, and you need to use good ingredients. Alright, there's my stick of butter. And 3/4 of a cup of sugar. We're going to combine this And when it gets creamy, we'll be back. Alright, that's all creamed up. So while the mixer's still going, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm going to add 3 eggs, but I'm only going to add them one at a time. And here comes the third one. You know, many years ago, all-purpose flour was about the only thing that was ever used. So when recipes said flour, it meant all-purpose flour. And, but, come to find out, self-rising flour was invented in the 1800s by a man in England, and he called it self-raising flour instead of self-rising flour. So anyway, in modern day times, still, now if it says flour, this is your tip, it's all-purpose flour. If it's self-rising flour, it'll say self-rising flour. So even though it was self-rising was invented a long time ago, now they differentiate between the two of them. If you have a recipe that says flour, a cup of flour, it'll be all-purpose flour, unless it states otherwise. Alright, I think that's mixed enough. Now, I've got another bowl here. Let me move this out of the way. Now this is going into the mixer. And I've already put this in here for time's sake. This is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Okay, and also a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and between 1/4 and 1/2 a teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to add this to this mixture, but we're only going to add half at a time, because also what's going in is a cup of sour cream, and you only add half. You add half the cream, half the flour, then the other half of the cream and the other half of the flour. So that's what we're about to do now. But I've already mixed the baking soda and baking powder and salt in with this flour. So I'm going to turn on the mixer. Well, let me get it over here. And they say you should start and end with dry ingredients. So I'm going to add half of the sour cream. This is a cup. Now I'm going to add half of the flour. I hope that mixer's not too loud for you. Alright, here's the other half. A cup of sour cream. Half a cup. You know, it's a total whole. 1 cup. This recipe will be down below in the description box. Alright, here comes the other cup of flour. I'm going to let that all get stirred up in there. Excuse me. Alright. I'm going to turn this off. Raise it up. Oh, that batter looks so good. I'm going to scrape these sides down a bit. And there's one more ingredient. And it's 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips. What I had was milk chocolate, and that's my preference, and I just happened to have that. If it had been semi-sweet, I'd have used those. Excuse me. But remember what I've always told you, use what you have. Take this off. Got a little bit on there. I don't want to waste anything. Alright. That's good enough. Maybe. Got a little on my fingers. Okay. Quick wash. Now, you know, the last time I used this mixing bowl, I couldn't get this glass bowl off. And I sure hope. Here we go. Ah, okay. What a mess. I'll get that later. Right now, we're baking a cake. So, I'm going to stir in these because I don't want them to get broken up. I'm just going to measure out 3/4 of a cup here. And you know, if it's a little more, I don't think it's going to hurt anything, do you? Here we go. 3/4 of a cup. I'm going to get this stirred in. Remember what I told you, when you're baking, always use large or extra large eggs. Small eggs just won't do. Alright. That's good. Now I'm going to put this aside here, and I'm going to get, this is the container I chose to use. Has to be 12 cups. Now, because some of this topping actually goes on the top, and I'll have to turn this upside down, why should I torture myself trying to get this out so that the top looks pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it upside down. So I'm putting the topping, half of this mixture, into the bottom of the cake dish. So we're just going to pick it up by the handfuls and sprinkle it around just like that. And when I turn this to get the cake out, it will be in the right direction. Alright, so I think that's about half. Alright. Wipe my hands off again. Be right back. Okay, so now half the batter's going in. And you know, be gentle because you don't want to move all your topping out of place. So you're only going to put in not even half, because the rest of this topping, or the nuts and stuff, it goes in the center of the cake, not on the bottom. So we're gonna get this in here, and it's kind of a stiff batter, but that's all right. We can manage it. All right. I think this will do. I'm just gonna spread it around. Try to get it as even as I can. And if you mess up and get a few nuts on the batter, so what? You know what? Thanksgiving, it takes hours to prepare and 15 minutes to eat it, if that long. All right. I think that's got it. Maybe just a tad more over here, because I see some nuts shining through, and I at least want to try to get them covered. Okay, guys. Now I'm going to put the other half of the mixture on. Wipe my hands. Here we go. And you know, kind of spread it out so that it looks even, because I've used it all. There we go. Now the other part of the batter. Let me rinse my hands. Okay. So here comes the other part of the batter. And I'm just going to try to help it along, you know. Just let it kind of fall off the spatula and move the spatula as it drops. So that kind of helps, you know. Alright, this is going, you know, in the 350-degree oven for about 50 minutes. Now you know, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I'm not cutting this because I want it to be perfect for Thanksgiving, but you'll get a good idea of what this cake looks like. So I'll see you in about 50 minutes. Well, we're back. My cake took exactly 50 minutes in my oven. So maybe, you know, depending on your oven, I'd gauge it around then. But the cake came out beautifully out of the shell, out of the cake pan. Unfortunately, not all of the top did. So I had to get some of it out with a spoon and place it on the cake. But it looks good. It looks perfect. It's great. Be good for serving. And I'm looking forward to having it on Thanksgiving Day. If you look around to the side here, you can see where the other layer of this stuff is. It's going to be delicious. I also made some ambrosia, so that ought to be good with it, don't you think? Anyway, here's the cake. If you like this recipe, please give me a thumbs up. And subscribe to me if you haven't. Thank you for coming in today. I'm trying to get a real close-up here, but I can't, really. It's a beautiful cake. Anyway, subscribe to me if you haven't. And give me a thumbs up. Don't forget those thumbs up. They're important to me. Until next time, you take care.